Hi, I'm Patty Ann Brown. Washington is responding emphatically to increased rhetoric from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The U.S. Tuesday night test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile from a base in California. It traveled over 4,000 miles before splashing down in the South Pacific. Meanwhile, the full Senate heads to a rare classified meeting at the White House on North Korea later today. Here to discuss is a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy-Related Research, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be on.
So the U.S. has also deployed warships, the aircraft carrier Carl Vinson, and yesterday a submarine, the USS Michigan, to the Korean Peninsula.
Right.
The U.S. and South Korea have also held live fire drills this week. And earlier today, the U.S. test-fired an unarmed missile from Vandenberg. All of this in response to North Korea's recent missile tests, which were in violation of international law. North Korea says the U.S. is being aggressive. They're threatening to sink the carrier, a super mighty preemptive strike. What do you say to those who say the U.S. is being provocative here?
Well, look, we can steam anywhere we want in international waters, so I think it's significant that the North Koreans are saying that we're being threatening by steaming the carriers wherever we want. I think that's clearly, you know, is it meant to send a signal to them? Absolutely. We have to remember here, the truth is the North Koreans have been the ones aggressively pursuing weapons of mass destruction since 1992. This is an issue I've worked, Jim Woolsey, former director of CIA, I worked with him on this issue back in the early 90s when he was director of CIA. So we've tracked the North Koreans going from a non-nuclear power to a nuclear power to working with others to export nuclear technology to the Iranians and others, developing a whole class of ballistic missiles and then firing those ballistic missiles in a provocative way. So the provocation's all been on the North Korean side. What we're simply trying to do right now is basically balance things. Over the term of the Obama administration, you had this quote-unquote strategic patience, which I also call strategic neglect, by the fact you ignored the North Koreans and allowed them a great deal of space to reestablish their nuclear program, continue to do things that are provocative to the South Koreans and the Japanese, and frankly, do everything they can to upset the stability within the region. And now it's to the point where I think even the Chinese are taking notice, stating 2 days ago that they'd like to seek a non-nuclear solution for the Korean Peninsula, which is huge. The Chinese have never said that before.
Yeah, the U.S. Installing this missile defense system in South Korea. It's called
THAAD,
THAAD.
right.
Stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. South Korea's government fully supports it. Their defense ministry saying, quote, South Korea and the U.S. have been working together to secure early operational capability of THAAD in response to North Korea's advancing nuclear and missile threat. Nonetheless,
Right.
we had some residents who live near the abandoned golf course where THAAD is being installed protesting there. But how important is this defense system?
This is very important. This is the land version of what we've had off in the sea on the Aegis cruisers. Our Aegis cruisers have a system, a missile system, which is capable of anti-missile capability. Basically, they can fire from a ship and take one of the North Korean missiles out. Now, what we have to remember, just simple physics. When a missile is fired off from North Korea during the boost phase, where it's going slowest, is the most opportune time to fire it, to shoot it down with another missile. So what we're seeing here is the THAAD, the land-based version of what we have the Aegis. Now, the whole idea is to have a protective shield so that the moment we see a trajectory of concern, that is to say that we see that the missile coming off the launch pad going in a direction or to a target we interpret as the Japanese or some other South Korean target, we can shoot it down. And this has been made very clear to the North Koreans that a provocation such as a missile being fired at a target that we feel that we are obligated to protect by treaty, that we will take action. And I think that's what's been made very clear by Mr. Trump, President Trump, versus President Obama. And let me be clear on this. We've had concerns that the Japanese, amongst others, did not have confidence in our ability to protect them. So clearly, the THAAD showing up, the Aegis cruisers being around the peninsula, are all measures being taken to help reassure our allies that we will do things to prevent the North Koreans from being able to hit them with any sort of missile, whatever they choose to do.
Yeah, China on Monday urged the Trump administration to exercise restraint. The U.S. is working with China on this issue, but
Right.
China's loyalties conflict a bit there. What is China's role?
Look, China has been an enabler of the North Koreans since the beginning. The North Koreans, by all definition, are a client state of the Chinese. And I think the Chinese have maintained the North Koreans, and I'll be blunt, a version of a vicious dog on a leash that once in a while they'll throttle it, but let it go otherwise, to be very very vigorous, very barking a lot, creating chaos. This chaos has served the Chinese well to destabilize our influence in the region. That's clearly why they've done it. But let me be clear on this point. If it wasn't for the Chinese, the lights in North Korea wouldn't be on. The people in North Korea would be starving. They would have virtually no economy if it not for the Chinese. So this is the Chinese are now finally taking notice by the fact that if anything happens to North Korea, if the government fails, that is to say if Kim Jong-un and his government is obliterated by us because of a retaliation or just failure because of political chaos, the real problem is going to be all the refugees are going to go into China. And so China recognizes that anything that happens to North Korea regarding the failure of the government or the North Koreans doing something provocative instantly affects China and instantly will destroy a lot of the Chinese economy, because the Chinese will lose momentum. So the Chinese, I think, recognize now that their best interests are our interests to maintain stability and not allow either war to break out or the North Korean government to fail, because in any circumstance, the Chinese are going to be the ones paying the most heavy price.
Yeah, we mentioned today's classified White House meeting on North Korea.
Right.
What might come out of that meeting? And people are asking, you know, if this escalates, what would be the next U.S. move? Are we past pinpoint strikes? Are we closer to an actual war?
The answer is, I think this is going to be essentially a situations brief. They're going to open up by giving the president the current information. Then I think he's going to be briefed on the current state of the war plans. There are contingency plans. Again, I've been in these meetings. You plan these things in great detail, and you have incremental options. You have pinprick options. You have medium options. You have whole-scale options, all the way up to include nuclear warfare. So those all will be briefed as, Mr. President, these are all the options available to us. And then I suspect they're going to have probably an hour-long discussion of tactics, of, okay, this is what we can do, this is what happens. It's like it's a chess game. And so you're going to go through all the chess moves we have available, and then you think about the secondary effects of what the Chinese will do, what the Japanese will do in response to each option. And that's probably going to be what goes through, and I'm not sure if any clear decision will be made, but the President will be made aware of all the capabilities, all the options, and what those effects of executing those options would be. All right. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, we will see what happens. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Thanks for having me. And for complete political coverage, stay right here on FoxNews.com. I'm Patty Ann Brown. Thanks for watching.